So inventory is very low right now, but that is primarily driven by the high interest rate environment. And the connection between the two is as follows. If I bought my house 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and I have a 3% interest mortgage, then I can't afford to move. So if I make a lateral move, the cost is going to be astronomical. I'm going to go from paying 3% to paying 8%. So people just think, but.
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are listening to watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Well, hey, we're going to talk to somebody about Florida real estate, but more importantly about technology, how it has changed the business. Zev Freitas, he's a neighbor of mine down in Boca Raton, Florida, and the background of his picture is actually I want to call it a shopping center, entertainment center. It's kind of evolved into a shopping center to an office complex called Meisner Park, if any of you are familiar with it. And Zev, you have a background in technology. You once upon a time worked for a GE, pretty much marketing software. And then you got into real estate. Kind of an interesting story. How did that happen?
Right. So I relocated from New York to Florida in the late 90s. And I had a goal of investing in real estate, residential real estate, just buying multiple residential properties and renting them. So I bought a couple and I ran out of down payment money. So I took a day job in the field that I was trained in. So I found a job with a local company. They ended up getting acquired by GE. I climbed the ladder. I ended up being a product marketing manager for quite a successful large enterprise software product. So I did that for a number of years. I traveled all around the world for them. And I realized that in doing so, I had put my real estate goals on the back burner. And a number of years had gone by. I had not bought another investment property. All the while, my coworkers were always picking my brain for, I was still trying to buy my first house. I heard you on 3. How'd you do it? That was around 2005. I just decided to quit my day job and just focus on real estate. So I kind of just fell into it like most realtors do. I figured if people ask me advice, if I can collect a commission, then I can deter my job search. So I did that a few times, and then I ran out of people to sell houses to. So I realized that I need to reach the masses. So I turned to what I know, which is technology. I put together a website. I did some search engine optimization, and I started generating some leads. And the rest, as they say, is history. I built a huge business around that.
All right. And so at one point, you said using technology, you were able to generate more leads than you could even deal with.
Yeah, sure. Most people are trying to rely on their sphere of influence. But no matter how big of a networker you are, no matter how big your social circles are, there's still only so many people that you know personally. And after they all are settled into their new homes, you still need to make a living. But if you can reach the masses, and the internet is the way to do that, and then the sky's the limit, really. So I just got people off the internet wanting to see homes. I would go take them, show them homes off the MLS, sell it to them, collect the commission, and then I would turn around and recruit the listing agent whose home I just sold with the promise of, I'll give you leads because I have more than I can handle. And that's the way I built the business. 50% of all the deals in that company were company-generated leads versus if you look at traditional brokerage, it's 99.99% agent-generated.
So most people, most agents, like we were talking pre-call, like your average realtor didn't, when he was 3 years old, and kids are saying, I want to be a cop, I want to be a fireman. He didn't say, gee, I want to be a realtor, I want to build real estate, right? So you deal with a lot of and I'm not being disparaging at all here, but you really deal with like a lot of misfits, don't you?
You mean the realtors?
Yeah, the realtors themselves.
Yes. But I'll tell you, there's always you just have to look at it differently. So I come from New York. The work ethic in New York is much different than here in Florida.
As a fellow New Yorker, I'm laughing.
Well, how long have you been down here?
Well, I've been coming down since I was 6, but it's always been my second home. My family lived here. My grandparents moved down in the 60s. My mother and sister moved here in the early 80s. And, it was always a lot like land of the slackers, right?
Correct. And I think, it's changing now, especially in the last 3 years with so many people migrating here from New York. I think that, we've stepped up a lot. But for many years.
I agree. And younger people too, because it was always, God's waiting room, right?
Correct. So the thing is, coming down here from New York with my work ethic, and everybody here is wearing flip-flops and shorts. Sure, there's a lot of misfits to deal with, but the flip side of that is it made it so much easier to be better than that. I simply put it, the realtor community here was like the realtor community in New York City. I think it would have been a lot harder for me to break into this business.
Yeah. Well, without saying anything disparaging, look, Florida is a leisure-based lifestyle, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I used to spend 80% of my time figuring out how to better my career, improve my career, make more money, and 20% on leisure activities. Now, I spend 80% of my time planning my next fun outing, and I spend 20% of my time on career. But I'm a lot better at this career than I used to be, so I don't need to spend the amount of time, and I don't want to, in different phase of life. So been really successful. Competition is lacking, but nowadays, can you still use the same formula that you used back in 2014 and achieve the same results? Is it more costly, or do you have to change things?
Right. So I believe that you can. I believe it's not as easy as it was back then. Competition certainly is more fierce, but the reward is still there. And I know that because last time around when I built my business, it was completely built on generating real estate leads online. Mm-hmm. And the way you do that is through search engine optimization. So you try to rank on particular keywords related to the areas we work in. And there's something called keyword research, which we do when we're trying to identify the correct keywords.
Sure.
And the bottom line is, if you take the predominant keywords in this area for real estate and you do the keyword research, there's still approximately the same amount of volume every month as there was 20 years ago. So the same amount of people pretty much go to Google every month and search for real estate in Boca Raton or any other major Florida as they did in 2005. And there's still real estate companies like mine that are ranking. Yes, there's some big portal sites like the Realtor.com and Zillow and those sites that dominate the first page of Google, but there's always a few local companies also on the first page of Google. So if there are small independent local companies that are able to make it to the first page, and there's the search volume is still there, then it only stands to reason that if you can get yourself a seat at that table, you'll have the same results as we did last time.
Do you have to spend more money though to get the same results you used to?
Yeah, more time, more money, and you got to be better.
All right, so more time, more money, but it's still profitable.
Yeah, I mean, because think about it, search engine optimization is all relative, right? There is not a magic formula that gets you the number one spot in Google. To be the number one spot, you just have to be better than the number two spot. So
it's relative.
It's relative. So every day, someone is trying to outrank someone else. So the stakes are raised constantly.
How much? Just give us a for instance. To get to the nitty gritty. We don't want trade secrets, but how much could a lead cost nowadays?
So I mean, look, the best way to put a number on that is to look at the big portal sites that sell leads and see what they charge. It can easily be $100 a lead.
Like the Zillows of the world, and
they all have their business models. Either they charge you, monthly fee for X amount, range of leads, or they charge you per lead, or they charge you sometimes a percentage of the commission that you make from that lead. There's a lot of different ways to monetize it, but one way or another, a lead is worth easy $100.
right.
And a lot of these places who sell you leads for give or take that amount, they'll sell the same lead to multiple people.
Yeah, like the second you click that you're interested in a mortgage, your phone starts ringing off the hook.
Right.
That's what they do.
Right. Now, the flip side of that, if you, from the realtor perspective, because I talk to realtors every day, I hire realtors, and they say, "Oh, I signed up for this or that one, and I get leads, but I could never get them on the phone. The line's always busy."
Yeah.
The reason the line is busy is because that person, like you said, they clicked the button, and then the company that captured the lead, they sent it out automatically to, I don't know, 4 or 5 different agents. So by the time you can dial the phone, somebody beat you to it.
Okay. And let's not forget that also people don't answer their phones like they once did.
That is true, but I think the bigger challenge is that they give the same lead to multiple agents. And I know for a fact that there are some brokerages that buy these leads and have automated systems to dial the customer as soon as the lead comes in.
Yeah, predictive dialers. Yeah.
Right, like some software that reads the email or text message that comes from the lead provider and then dials the phone and then connects it to a live person call center. So if you're just an agent riding around town with customers in your car and you want to buy leads from one of these providers, and they're also selling it to one of those companies with a call center and an auto dialer, you're never going to get any customers.
You're at so you got an auto dialer there and you got people sitting at the phones, huh?
Me, I don't, because I just know a few things. I don't buy leads from these providers because I'm not interested in leads that go to other people. I generate leads myself. And my promise to my agents is I will not if I give you a lead, I give it to you only. I'm not going to give it to anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. So your agents get a better deal because you're generating the leads and you get more value for your dollars spent.
By generating leads for my agents, I do 2 things. I create a value proposition for my agents, right? If half of their business is coming from their broker, they wouldn't even think about switching brokers because they'd leave half their business behind. So that's number 1. It's great for hiring and retaining agents. And number 2, I just grow the bottom line because if my agents sell more, I make more.
Right. Yeah. So it's a consanguinity of interest there. And because we know that brokers otherwise will just go to the highest bidder where they get the highest commission rate, right?
You mean, right, agents. So the terminology is you have one
sales agents, right?
Right. So the agents will just go, and there's brokers that do it for 100%. But the old saying in this business, when you become the broker, right? When you're an agent working under a broker, then if you become the broker, the joke is that you become broker.
The client became broker, like stock market brokers,
right? Right, but that's because most brokers are competing on price, and when you compete on price, it's just a race to the bottom because there's always somebody willing to work for less than you. So if you're adding value, it's different.
So let's look at a different business model. When you talk about discount brokers here in real estate, we think of Redfin, right? Has that model proven successful for them?
So the Redfin model is actually a little different. The Redfin model is very dependent on lead generation, but then how they monetize it is different. So they take the lead, they hire agents and they pay them, not a salary, but they pay them, say, per showing. Let's say they get $50 to open the door. So they generate a lead off of the internet and they then send it to an agent to go open the door and let them see the house. And they don't have to pay the agent because they paid the agent as they went, to open the door. So the broker gets to keep the whole commission. Now,
Right.
yeah, it could be a discounted commission because they give back some of the commission to the client, and that's just their incentive on how to get the clients to work with them. But ultimately, it's very profitable for the broker because they don't have to pay out the commissions to the agents.
Right. Okay. So you don't sound super enthusiastic about it. Is that the
I don't want
real estate?
It's very profitable for Redfin. Redfin's a very good company. I think that look, it's a trade-off. If you, as an agent, if you want a more sure, steady income, you can do that, but you're not going to make the upside that a commission-based agent makes.
Right. So less risk, less reward, right?
A lot less.
Guaranteed income, but your guarantee is less, right?
Yeah, like most things, right? Risk versus reward.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So, hey, what I really wanted to get, John, was to talk about the state of Florida real estate, because all we hear about is higher interest rates and, basically Florida real estate's going to go down. Florida sales are down year over year. I'm not sure if that's more an issue of inventory or if it's just an issue of interest rates. What's your take there?
It's both, and they're connected to each other. So inventory is very low right now, but that is primarily driven by the high interest rate environment. And the connection between the two is as follows. If I bought my house 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and I have a 3% interest mortgage, then I can't afford to move. So if I make a lateral move, the cost is going to be astronomical. I'm going to go from paying 3% to paying 8%. So people just think, but anyone who has a low interest rate mortgage would be foolish to sell their house. So that's
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah. Like, why would you do it? Right. 3% mortgage, you can't get them. The mortgage rates are over 7% now. Right. So that's artificially constricting sales. And it's a question of, right, how much you need to move, right?
Right. Well, and then you have the homeowners who do not have mortgages, right? Who paid cash, own their home spring. They don't want to move either, and that's simply because of how much prices have gone up in Florida. If you move, again, take the mortgage out of the picture, but if I sell my house, I'm going to have a huge capital gain. I'm going to pay the IRS a big chunk of that. And my real estate taxes are going to quadruple if I make a lateral move.
Oh, I never even thought of that. So yeah, because you're going to buy a new home at current market value. And when you move in, the tax appraiser basically equalizes your rate to current market value or below it, but still your taxes go up substantially.
Pretty much, but it all basically comes back to the homestead laws in Florida, which are a good thing. So homestead laws are, when you have your primary residence in Florida,
right,
they cannot raise the assessed value more than 3% a year.
Correct. So
if I bought, say, 20 years ago for $1 million, they can only bump it up 3% a year, but now it's worth $10 million, and I'm paying on 1.5, 1.3 with some much a fraction of what it's really worth. If I move next door to the identical house, now they have portability, so you can take some of that protection with you, but it's only $500,000, just like the half you get on the capital gains. But in this market here, where houses are $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, that $500,000 does nothing for you. So it's just very costly to move right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's yet another reason. And then insurance.
Insurance, right? Yes. Insurance is
bad news here.
Insurance is a big problem here. That one, I don't really know what's the solution. The other ones, there are solutions. Like the homestead situation, I believe there's a simple thing that the government can do that will really help the market and help the people, which is there should be no cap to portability.
Right.
Now,
Moving from home to home.
you should be able to
Yeah.
transfer your business.
Right.
And now the argument against it is they need the revenue, but the reality.
The revenue, they had a $20 billion surplus last year. I mean,
Okay.
like you need more money and I need more money, but not like they're going to go broke without it.
True, but even besides that, I think that logic is wrong because they're not going to get the revenue anyway because no one's going to move under those conditions. And when people don't move, they lose a lot more revenue than the hypothetical tremendous tax bill that they're never going to get anyway. They lose all of the
Well,
whole in.
here somebody else will come in from New York or from one of the failing overtaxed states and buy it anyway, so we don't have to do anything. But it's not always like that. This probably is a temporary phenomena, don't you think?
Well, whether it's temporary or not depends on what they do going forward. But let me address that scenario of someone wealthy coming from New York and buying it anyway. I'll tell you why that logic doesn't work. Someone from New York might be willing to come here and buy a $10 million house and pay a 2% annual real estate tax, pay $200,000 a year. Someone might be willing to do that. But what house is he going to buy? For every buyer, you need a seller. And the guy living in that house who's paying $50,000 a year now is not going to sell it to the guy in New York who's willing to pay. So they're not going to get that anyway.
Yeah, unless they want to downsize for whatever reason. But downsizing doesn't make any sense because if you, you're just going to pay more in taxes, and you wind up paying more in taxes for a house that's double or triple the size. So why bother, right?
Right. Now, if they had unlimited portability, then people who are here will move, and that will make more inventory for new money to come in, which ultimately will help tax revenue.
I see your point. Totally agree. Hey, so my grandparents moved here in 1967 or 68. And I think they moved for the weather mostly, because back then New Jersey wasn't really a high tax state. It was a low tax state. We didn't have a state income tax in New Jersey, but certainly the weather. So, but my point is, hey, we go back to 1960, there were 5 million people in the state. In 1950, I think there were 2 million or 1.7 million. In 2023, it's getting close to 23 million. So this trend really of people fleeing is only increasing. And taxes in the high tax states, no one can tell me that a major factor in your decision to move to Florida isn't because of high taxes. All right. The difference, why you moved to Florida as opposed to why you moved to Alaska, which has no state income tax either, it's clear, or to North Dakota, say, which is still in the lower 48. You're going to move to Florida unless you have this love of snow and unlimited amounts of it, right?
Yeah, and there's a few states for sure in the country that have favorable taxes, but most of the other states that fall in that category don't have our weather. Yes,
but the thing is, affordability in the state, even before interest rates went up, due to the pandemic and the people fleeing more restrictive pandemic regulations, controls, that number only went up. But is there a limit to how many people can live in Florida here, Zev?
So I think that it is certainly overpopulated, at least in South Florida. It's certainly frustrating for someone like myself who lives here. I moved here in the 1990s from New York, looking for a more quieter, slower lifestyle. And now everything I left has followed me here. It's been good for business. There's a lot of good that came from all the migration, but it's certainly getting crowded here. But price-wise, prices are so much higher than they used to be here. But I don't see them coming, crashing like some people think. And I'll tell you a few reasons. First of all, if you compare Florida prices with the rest of the country, it's still far more affordable than the other major cities. So anyone kind of, from New York, LA, Chicago, any of these places, they've also gone up. So, well, we're still a better deal. You still get more house here for your money than you do in those places. And also, something that you have to adjust your thinking to is the value of the dollar. It's just not what it used to be. So, I like to joke that $1 million is just not worth $1 million anymore.
No, it's worth a tenth that of 20, 40 years ago, maybe 40 years ago. It's worth about 10%, perhaps.
Okay, so take the value of your house and take a zero.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself, is it overpriced?
Hey, and the taxes are less here for sure. Real estate taxes. When I left Westchester County, New York, we were blessed with the highest real estate taxes in the country. That was our claim to fame. And still paying 40% of what I pay there. Lesser house. Well, maybe this house isn't really lesser, but maybe it's 20% less house than I had in Westchester. So I'm paying a fraction of what I paid there. And no state income tax.
And our real estate taxes are not considered to be low.
Not by any.
8% of the value of the home. It's not it's not that low. Where we really make up for it is the lack of income tax.
Yeah, lack of income tax. And food is pretty much the same cost as it is there. Gas, probably about the same. Pretty much income tax. And, well, I was going to say lower tolls, but we're getting lots of tolls now. So,
yeah, but not like New York.
Yeah. Not like $20 to go over a bridge.
Exactly.
For sure. Yeah, I remember. I feel like the old timer. I remember when it was 25 cents to go each way through the Lincoln or Holland Tunnel or over the GW Bridge, and now it's 40 times that. So much for inflation. Road tolls have gone up as fast as healthcare expenses and college educations.
Well, both of those things also went up a lot more than they should have.
Yeah. Hey, so prognosis, there's got to be a limit, though, because, look, what happened last 2 winters ago, or I should say summers ago, where people stayed here after the winter because they didn't want to go back to lockdowns.
Right.
It really disrupted the supply chain of your supermarkets, and the supply chain was already disrupted, but you saw it in the stores. So the question is, how much longer can the party go on, Zev?
Are you asking our price is going to crash?
No, I'm saying.
Or are you asking how long can more people keep moving?
Yeah, what can the population go? Can we go to 30 million like Texas?
Yeah. So here's what I think will happen. I think other parts of Florida have yet to see the best of it yet. There are parts of Florida that are still much more affordable than where we are.
Sure.
And still have all the benefits that we're talking about. Again, it's still the Florida law, it's Florida taxes, it's Florida weather. Places like Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville, these areas have plenty of room to grow, and they're not as overpopulated as South Florida. I think those will be the areas that will see huge upside in the next few years.
Right. So new home builders, they seem to have slowed down a bit here, though. Or they're cutting stuff and trying to make it more affordable by cutting out stuff and I guess adding more extras, right?
Home builders are kind of a trickier business because of the lead time it takes from when you buy the land till you get approvals till you put the
10 years. Development, 10 years.
Right. So what they try to do is, and it's all done with financing, right? These builders aren't buying land for cash and building everything out of their own pocket. It's all construction loans and all kinds of financing. So there's a time cost of money. So they try to, and then they have to predict, what prices will be at the completion of the project. So, they've all done very good over the past few years because whatever their business plan was, they did better. So, there was no surprises to the downside. But they still need to think about what's going to be a few years out and what's going to cost to get from here to there. So I think they're just being extra cautious.
Hey, well, if you couldn't make money as a home builder in Florida over the past, let's say 5 years, 4 or 5 years, then you had some serious issues going on in your business plan and your quality and everything else. Even with bad quality, you could sell anything the past few years. Maybe now it's a little more difficult. So, hey, Zev, really appreciate you coming on. How do we find you on the web? How do we connect with you?
Sure. So Zev Freitas, ZFC Real Estate. Our website is zfc.com.
And the links in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. If you got a question for Zev or myself, just shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. I happen to be a realtor, but I am non-practicing. But hey, I could give you some advice if you want. I'm not saying everybody should live in Florida. It's not for everybody. I find myself, I can't retire, Zev, because most of my activities take place at night, my leisure activities. I'm not a golfer. I'm not much of a tennis player. I do like to walk. So I got to keep working during the day. Otherwise, I will have nothing to do, and I'm not sitting around watching TV or playing with the internet, you know?
Yeah, I do.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot. And again, Zev's URL is in the show notes to this interview. Got a question, kl@kerrylutz.com. On the one hand, I don't want you to move down because it's getting too crowded. On the other hand, look, everybody's entitled to pursue your happiness, however that may be. And Zev, I'm sure you agree, when it comes to from October to like the beginning of May, there's no place in the country better to be than Florida.
Agreed.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.